This episode is an ESL listening practice for intermediate learners. You will hear a natural conversation with clear pronunciation and everyday English. No tests, no pressure, just listening. Let's start.
Hello and welcome back to ESL Listening Practice. I am your host, and I'm just so glad to be back in the studio with you today.
And hello from me as well. It's fantastic to be here.
I think we're going to have one of our most important conversations yet today, so thank you for tuning in.
I'm really looking forward to this one. It's a topic that, honestly, it comes up all the time with my students. Constantly.
You know, we spent a massive amount of time on this show really dissecting the nuts and bolts of English. We talk about grammar rules until we're blue in the face.
Oh, absolutely. Phrasal verbs, sentence structure, preposition.
And conditionals, all of it.
Yeah.
And look, those are the building blocks, right? They're completely essential.
Okay.
But today, I want to pivot a little.
Okay.
I want to talk about something that I honestly believe is much, much harder than any grammar rule you will ever find in a textbook.
I think I know exactly where you're heading with this. You're moving away from the mechanics and more into the art of the language.
I am.
The soft skills of fluency, right?
Exactly. I'm talking about that very specific and, let's be honest, terrifying moment that every single language learner faces. Picture this. You're standing in a group of English speakers. It could be anywhere. A dinner party, a coffee break at work. Maybe you're just chatting with your neighbors.
Right. A totally normal social situation.
And someone says a sentence. You process it. You understand the subject, the verb, the object. You know every single vocabulary word. The grammar is perfect. But then
Everyone laughs.
everyone around you just explodes with laughter.
It's just standing there.
You're frozen. You're just standing there thinking, wait a minute, why are they laughing? That sentence wasn't funny.
In fact, if you translate it literally, that sentence was probably kind of sad or maybe just a plain statement of fact.
Exactly. And you feel that panic setting in. You feel completely and utterly lost.
It is the final boss of language learning. That's what I always call it with my advanced students. You can pass all the exams, you can write the essays, you can give a perfect business presentation, but humor is the hardest level of the game.
Because it requires you to understand what is not being said.
Exactly. You have to read between the lines. It's a whole different skill set.
And I think for so many of our listeners, especially those of you at that solid intermediate B2 level or even C1, this is a huge source of frustration.
Oh, it's massive.
It makes you feel like you aren't actually fluent, even when on paper you are. You can read a novel, but you can't get the joke at the pub.
Right. And that's because language isn't just about exchanging data. It's not just, transmitting information like a computer.
It's about connection.
It's about connection. And humor is probably the main way we connect socially. So when you miss the joke, you don't just miss a piece of information.
No.
You feel like you're on the outside looking in. You feel socially isolated, which is just a terrible feeling when you're working so hard to integrate into a new culture.
But, and this is the important part, here's the good news. This is really the whole premise of our session today.
Okay.
If you are in that situation, if you don't get the joke, I want you to know something really, really important. You are probably not missing vocabulary.
Right.
You are not bad at English. You are simply missing context. You're missing the code.
That is such a crucial point. It is so rarely about the dictionary definition of the words. It's about tone. It's about culture. It's about all these hidden rules of English conversation.
The things they don't write in the textbooks.
Exactly. Linguists call it pragmatics, the study of how context contributes to meaning. And that's what we're talking about.
So our mission today is to give you a toolkit. We're not just going to list a bunch of jokes because, honestly, that doesn't help you understand the mechanism.
No, that's useless.
We're going to deconstruct the mechanics of why things are funny in English. We're going to look at irony, the nuance of tone, the art of understatement.
And even what to do when you absolutely, positively do not understand what is happening.
We want to help you turn that feeling of confusion into a feeling of confidence.
To help you move from being a passive listener, just sort of standing there, to being an active participant in the joke.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The first big concept. This is, I would say, the foundation of almost all Western and specifically British and American humor.
I agree. This is ground zero.
We have to talk about the mechanics of indirectness. If you want to understand English humor, you have to accept one fundamental rule. It is rarely obvious.
That is the golden rule right there. In linguistics, we often talk about these things called Grice's maxims. They're basically the unspoken rules of a cooperative conversation.
Right, like be truthful, be clear.
Exactly. One rule is the maxim of quality, which is to be truthful. Another is to be clear. Well, English humor takes those rules and just, throws them out the window. It deliberately breaks them.
That's so true. In many other cultures, if I want to tell you a joke, I might signal it. I might say, let me tell you a funny story.
Or if I'm happy, I say, I am happy. If I'm sad, I say, I am sad. It's very direct.
English speakers, especially when they're trying to be funny, we just don't do this.
No, we really don't. In fact, we often do the exact opposite. We hide the meaning.
And that's where irony comes in.
Irony. At its core, irony is just saying the opposite of what you mean. Or, expressing a meaning that completely contradicts the literal words. It's a game of opposites.
Let's unpack that with a really specific high-stakes example, because this happens all the time in professional settings.
Oh, definitely.
Let's say you're in a meeting, you've just given a huge presentation, and it was a complete disaster.
Okay, paint the picture for us.
The projector broke halfway through, you completely forgot your notes, and to top it all off, you spilled coffee all down your white shirt right before you started.
Oh, no. A total nightmare scenario. Just thinking about it makes me sweat.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Now, a direct speaker, maybe someone from what we'd call a low-context culture, where words mean exactly what they say, they might say, that was terrible. I am so embarrassed.
Right. A direct statement of fact and feeling.
But an English speaker using humor, well, they say they sit down, they look at their colleague, and they say,
well, that went well.
Well, that went well.
And there's usually a little smirk there, maybe a slight exhale or a shake of the head. That nonverbal cue is part of it.
Totally. Now, if you're a learner and you translate that sentence literally, you might think the person is delusional.
You'd be so confused. Did they think that was good? Did they not see the giant coffee stain? Are they completely unaware of reality?
But the humor comes from the gap. I like to call it the reality gap.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
There's this huge gap between the reality, which everyone in the room knows is a disaster, and the words being used, which are positive.
And that gap is where the joke lives.
That gap is where the joke lives. I love that. And usually, the wider the gap, the funnier the joke is supposed to be.
It is. So the listener has to do this lightning-fast calculation in their head. The reality is negative. The words are positive. Therefore, the true meaning must be negative.
And we actually have a rule for this, a kind of heuristic that our listeners can use to help them spot this in the wild.
Right. We call it the polite versus bad situation rule.
Break that down for us. How can a learner actively use this rule?
It's actually pretty simple. If a sentence sounds too polite or too positive for a situation that is clearly, obviously bad, it is almost certainly a joke. It's almost certainly irony.
So wait, the worse the situation gets, the more polite the language becomes.
Often, yeah. It's a strange inverse relationship. If your car breaks down in the middle of a thunderstorm and you're stranded on the side of the highway, soaked to the bone,
Okay.
and you turn to your friend and say, fantastic, just what I needed. I do love a good swim.
You're not actually happy.
Of course not. The extreme politeness, the word fantastic, is being used to highlight just how awful the situation really is.
And this is just so difficult for B2 learners because they're trained correctly to trust the words. They hear fantastic, and their brain immediately retrieves the definition. Fantastic means very good.
They get stuck on the semantic meaning.
It's exactly.
They're processing the semantic meaning, the dictionary definition, but they're completely missing the pragmatic meaning, which is the meaning in context. You have to learn to distrust the words when the context is, screaming danger.
But why? This is the question I always get from my students. Why do we do this? Why don't we just say, this is terrible? Why play these mind games? Is it just to be difficult?
That's a fascinating question, and it's not about being difficult. Psychologically, it serves a really crucial social function.
Which is?
Well, think about it. If I stand there in the rain and say, this is a disaster, I'm so angry, my day's ruined, I'm bringing the mood down, I'm complaining, I'm making myself the victim.
You're just adding negativity to more negativity.
Exactly. But if I say, well, this is just wonderful, isn't it? I'm doing something different. I'm inviting you to laugh with me at the absurdity of the universe.
It softens the blow?
It softens the blow, and more importantly, it creates a bond. We are bonding over our shared misfortune. We're laughing at the chaos together instead of crying about it separately. It's a coping mechanism.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It's almost like a kind of Stoic philosophy disguised as a joke. Like, I can't change the reality of this rain, so I'm going to change how I describe it.
That is a very deep way to put it. But yes, I think you're right. It's about control. It's about maintaining a little bit of dignity in the face of failure or bad luck.
So for our listeners, the big takeaway here is you have to stop trusting the words blindly. Look at the situation. If the words don't match the situation, if the words are up here and the reality is way down here, you are almost certainly dealing with irony.
Precisely. And that leads us directly into the next piece of the puzzle. Because if the words are saying one thing and the meaning is the complete opposite, how do you know? What if you can't see the situation? What's the clue?
Well, you have to listen to the music.
The music.
You have to listen to the tone.
Tone is everything. In English humor, I would argue that how something is said is significantly more important than what is said.
I'd say 80% of sarcasm is carried just in the pitch and the rhythm of the voice.
At least. And I feel like this is where a lot of learners get tripped up because they're focusing so hard on catching every single consonant and vowel, the phonemes, that they completely miss the melody, the prosody.
Right. And English humor has a few very specific, very common melodies. One of the most common, and I think the most confusing for non-native speakers, is the flat tone.
The deadpan.
Deadpan delivery.
Deadpan literally means dead face, no expression. This is when a speaker says something that's supposed to be hilarious or absurd or sarcastic, but their voice is completely flat, completely serious.
Give us an example of that.
Sure. Imagine someone asks you, so did you enjoy that 4-hour meeting about the inventory of paper clips?
Okay, a terribly boring meeting.
A mind-numbingly boring meeting. A deadpan response would be, oh yes, it was the highlight of my year. I didn't want it to end.
You said that with absolutely zero emotion. You sounded like a GPS navigation system.
That's the point. That complete lack of emotion is the clue. If I really meant it, if I was genuinely excited about paper clips, my voice would have inflection. It would go up. I'd say, oh my gosh, yes, it was amazing.
But by stripping all the emotion out, you're signaling that the words themselves are empty.
It's almost like you're daring the listener to figure it out. It's a bit of a test of their social intelligence.
It feels like in-group behavior. If you get it, you're in the club.
It is. But then you have the complete opposite end of the spectrum, which is probably easier to spot but can still be tricky. The exaggerated tone.
Yes. The hyper-emotional one.
This is when you use way too much emotion, for example. Oh, wow. You are so smart. That is the best idea I have ever heard in my entire life.
Ouch. That one stings a little more. It feels a bit more aggressive.
It can be. That elongation of the words so smart is like a giant flashing neon sign that says sarcasm. It's often used to mock someone or their idea.
And we can't talk about tone without also talking about silence. The power of the pause.
The pause is a weapon in English humor. A well-placed pause can change the entire meaning of everything that came before it. It's all about comedic timing.
I'm thinking of a specific visual cue that often happens during that pause.
The eyebrows.
The raised eyebrows, yes.
If someone says something, pauses, and then raises their eyebrows, they are essentially sending you a nonverbal message that says, I do not actually mean this literally. Or maybe, can you believe this nonsense?
Let's do a deep dive case study on a single word. Because I think this one word causes more confusion than maybe any other in the English language when it comes to tone.
Let me guess. Is it interesting?
It is interesting.
Interesting. The most dangerous word in the dictionary. It's the chameleon of English vocabulary.
It really is. Because in a dictionary, interesting means engaging the attention, holding curiosity. It's a positive word. If I say, this book on astrophysics is interesting, I usually mean I like it.
But in casual conversation, interesting almost never means interesting. It changes color completely based on the tone.
Okay, let's role play this to show the whole spectrum. Scenario 1. I show you a painting I made, and let's be honest, it's really, really ugly. It's just a mess of brown and gray.
Okay.
You don't want to hurt my feelings. What do you say?
Okay, so I'd look at it. I would pause. There's that important pause again. I'd probably tilt my head slightly, and I'd say in a slow, thoughtful voice, that is interesting.
Ouch, I felt that. Even though the word you used is positive, the delay and the flat tone just killed me.
So what did I really mean there?
You meant strange. You meant weird. You meant, I have no idea what to say about this, but I definitely do not like it.
Exactly. It's a polite placeholder for a negative opinion.
Yeah.
Now, scenario 2. You tell me a story about your neighbor who walks his cat on a leash every morning while wearing a full tuxedo.
I would probably say, wow, that is interesting.
Right. There, with a slightly higher pitch and maybe a little chuckle in your voice, it means funny, quirky, or bizarre.
Okay, and scenario 3. I invite you over for dinner and I serve you a new soup recipe. I'm trying. It tastes like cure vinegar. You take one sip.
My face would probably scrunch up a little bit. I'd try to hide it. I'd say, this soup has a very interesting flavor.
And that means bad.
That means terrible. It means I am trying very hard not to spit this out onto your clean tablecloth.
So interesting rarely means interesting.
Almost never in these kinds of social contexts. If someone genuinely thinks something is interesting, they'll usually use a stronger, more unambiguous word. They'll say fascinating or cool or amazing or compelling.
So if they just settle for interesting, and especially if they use that pause that is interesting, you need to read between the lines.
You really do. And it connects back to what we said earlier about politeness. We use interesting to avoid saying bad or ugly or weird. It's a polite mask.
It's the ultimate polite mask.
Yeah.
It protects the speaker from being rude, and it protects the listener from being directly insulted.
But if you don't know the code, you might walk away from that dinner party thinking, wow, they absolutely loved my vinegar soup.
Which leads to a very awkward second invitation.
A very awkward and very short second dinner party.
Okay, so we've got irony and we've got tone. Now, I want to move on to something that I think is very specific to English-speaking cultures, particularly in the UK, but it's very, very prevalent in the US, Australia, and Canada too.
Let me guess. Understatement.
The art of understatement.
Yes. Minimizing the catastrophe, the linguistic equivalent of a shrug in the face of disaster.
This is kind of the opposite of hyperbole, isn't it? In some languages and cultures, say in parts of Latin America or the Mediterranean, you might make things bigger to be funny. You amplify the emotion for dramatic effect.
But in English, we often do the opposite. We make them smaller. We shrink the problem. We use these tiny, calm words to describe massive, chaotic events.
So how would you define understatement for our listeners in this context?
Understatement is a figure of speech where a writer or speaker intentionally makes a situation seem less important, less serious, or less urgent than it actually is.
Let's use some classic examples. Let's say you walk into your kitchen. A pipe has burst. There is water everywhere. The ceiling is dripping. It is, for all intents and purposes, a flood. Your shoes are ruined.
Okay, a normal biological reaction might be to scream or cry.
Right. But the classic English humor reaction, you stand there in the doorway, you look at the water rising around your ankles, maybe you put your hands on your hips and you say,
oh, it's a bit of a mess.
It's a bit of a mess.
Or my personal favorite, well, this isn't ideal.
Not ideal. I love that phrase so much. Not ideal is the secret code for absolute catastrophe.
It really is. I mean, think about it. If a surgeon comes out of the operating room after a long surgery and says to the family the procedure was not ideal, that is very, very bad news.
Terrifying news.
But in a social setting, using that same phrase to describe a flooded kitchen is funny because of the incredible restraint. It's the contrast between the chaos of the flood and the calmness of the words.
It's what we could call the too calm indicator.
That's the perfect heuristic for it. If the person's reaction seems suspiciously calm, almost unnaturally calm given the chaos of the situation, then humor is very likely involved.
Where does this come from? Is this connected to that famous stiff upper lip that we always hear about in Britain?
It definitely has its roots there. The cultural idea that losing control of your emotions, especially in public, is embarrassing. That showing panic is a sign of weakness or a loss of dignity.
So even when the ship is sinking, you're supposed to make a joke about the water being a bit chilly.
It's a refusal to panic publicly. And by refusing to panic, you're sort of inviting others to stay calm with you. It can almost be a leadership trait in some ways.
But for a learner, it's so confusing because the words a bit of a mess literally mean a small problem. A bit implies a very small quantity.
So you have to look at the visual evidence. If the kitchen is underwater and the person says, a bit of a mess, do not believe the words. Believe your eyes.
Always believe your eyes over your ears in these situations.
Always.
Another great example is how we talk about illness. If an English speaker has a terrible flu, a high fever, they feel like they are dying, and you ask them, how are you feeling?
They'll almost certainly say, oh, I've been better. Or the classic, not too bad.
Not too bad should imply good. But in this context, it means I am suffering immensely.
And here's the funny part. If they just won the lottery and you asked them how they were doing,
They'd probably also say, not too bad, actually.
So not too bad covers the entire spectrum of human experience from I am dying to I'm a multimillionaire.
It's a very versatile phrase, But again, context is king. You have to look for the other clues.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to our next big pillar of humor. And this one is huge. If you want to make friends in English, particularly in the US and the UK, you have to understand this one. Self-deprecation.
Ah, yes. The friendly humor, or, as I like to call it, the art of beating everyone else to the punch.
This is quite simply joking about yourself. Joking about your own failures, your own flaws, your own mistakes.
It's everywhere in our cultures, but it's so important to understand that in some other cultures, self-deprecation can be seen as a sign of weakness.
Right.
If you criticize yourself, people might think you are actually incompetent or that you have low self-esteem. They might even lose respect for you.
That's a great point. If I'm in a very hierarchical business culture and I say I'm just terrible at math, people might seriously worry about me handling the department budget.
Exactly. But in casual English conversation, self-deprecation is a tool. It's a tool for leveling the playing field. It's all about status.
Explain that concept of status leveling. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so if I come into a room and I act perfect, I'm smart, I'm successful, I make no mistakes, I'm putting myself on a higher level than everyone else, I'm above them.
And that creates distance.
It creates distance. It can make people resent you or feel uncomfortable around you. But if I walk in and make a joke about how I'm so bad at parking my car or how I always manage to burn toast,
You're lowering your own status.
I'm lowering myself intentionally. I'm saying, hey, I'm just like you. I'm flawed. I'm human. Don't be intimidated by me.
It makes you relatable.
It makes you approachable. And this is the key. It's a sign of social intelligence, not low confidence. It shows that you are actually so confident that you can afford to laugh at yourself.
Let's look at a classic example structure.
Yeah.
Someone might say, I'm great at cooking. If burning food counts as cooking.
That's the perfect structure. You set up a strength, I'm great at cooking, which on its own might sound a little arrogant.
And then you immediately undercut it with the punchline. If burning food counts.
Yeah.
You build yourself up just to knock yourself down.
Right. Now, here's the tricky part for learners. A learner hears that and they think, oh no, he's so sad about his cooking skills. I should comfort him. I should be a good friend.
So they jump in and say, no, don't say that. I'm sure you are a wonderful cook.
And that, while well-intentioned, actually kills the joke. It completely ruins the moment.
Makes everything so awkward. Why? Why is that the wrong response?
Because when someone uses self-deprecation, they are not looking for your pity. They are looking for your laughter. They are fishing for a laugh, not a compliment.
So the social rule here is permission to laugh.
Yes, absolutely. If someone laughs at themselves, you are not only allowed to laugh with them, you are expected to. It is not rude. It's a form of bonding.
That is so counterintuitive for so many polite people. We are taught from childhood not to laugh at other people's mistakes.
But in this very specific case, the person has served their mistake up to you on a platter. They're offering it to you as a gift, a moment of shared humor. If you don't laugh, you are, in a way, rejecting their gift.
You're making the situation serious when they wanted it to be light.
That is a great way to think about it. If I say, oh, I'm such an idiot, I locked my keys in the car again, and you look at me with these sad, sympathetic eyes and say, oh, I'm so sorry, that must be very difficult for you.
I feel weird. I feel like a victim.
Exactly. But if you chuckle and say, oh, wow, again, you really need to get a leash for those keys, then we're friends. We're on the same level.
You're validating my humanity. You're saying, I see your flaw and I accept it and we can laugh about it together.
Precisely.
Okay, now let's talk about the one type of humor that I think even scares me sometimes, and it definitely scares our listeners. Wordplay.
Puns.
Puns and double meanings. The playground of language.
This is when a joke relies entirely on a word having two different meanings, which we call polysemy, or two different words sounding exactly the same, which are homophones.
And this is notoriously difficult for learners. It requires a very high-level vocabulary and a really good ear for phonological awareness. You have to be able to process two meanings at the exact same time.
It's a lot of cognitive load.
But, and this is the good news, I want to shout this from the rooftops, even native speakers miss these jokes sometimes. Or, even more importantly, even native speakers hate these jokes sometimes.
That is so true. We even have a special term for them, dad jokes.
Yes. Explain the concept of the dad joke.
A dad joke is a pun that is usually so simple and so obvious that it's considered bad. The expected reaction isn't a belly laugh, it's a groan.
Okay, give us a terrible pun. I'm ready for it.
Okay, here's a classic. I'm reading a book on anti-gravity.
Okay.
It's impossible to put down.
Oh, that is painful. That is truly painful.
See, you groaned. That was the correct and expected reaction.
So the joke is that put down means to stop reading the book because it's so good, but it also means to physically place the book on a table, which you can't do because of anti-gravity.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. But it took my brain a second to run the analysis.
And that is the key for you as a learner. You do not need to mathematically analyze the joke in real time. You don't need to solve a formula in your head.
This brings us to a really, really important rule about fluency in humor. The goal is not perfect comprehension.
No, absolutely not. The goal is social recognition.
What do you mean by that, social recognition?
It just means you need to recognize that it is a joke. You don't need to write a thesis on why it is funny.
So if I'm in a group and someone tells a dad joke and everyone kind of groans or laughs,
You don't need to freeze. You don't need to panic and think, what did I miss? You can just smile. You can give a little chuckle. You can even just say, oh, I see.
and that is a perfectly acceptable response.
It is 100% acceptable. You are participating in the social moment. You are acknowledging the other person's attempt at humor. That is more than enough. You do not need to dissect the grammar to be part of the group.
That takes so much pressure off. I think students feel like if they don't laugh hysterically at every single joke, they've somehow failed a test.
Not at all. A polite smile is the universal signal for, I acknowledge your attempt at humor. It works everywhere.
Okay, but now what about when the barrier isn't the language? It's not the tone. It's not even wordplay. It's something deeper.
The cultural barrier.
This is the invisible wall, and this is probably the hardest one to climb.
It really is. Because you can know every single word in the English dictionary, but if a joke references a specific TV show from 1995, or a political figure from a decade ago, or a stereotype about a city in the north of England,
You're going to be completely lost.
totally lost. Humor relies so heavily on shared knowledge. We call this external knowledge or cultural literacy. It's all the information that exists outside of the language itself.
National stereotypes are a huge one.
Massive. In the UK, there are endless jokes about the weather being gray and rainy, or about queuing, or about tea. If you don't know that British people are sort of upset with their own bad weather, the jokes won't land.
Right, and in the U.S., there might be jokes about the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Yes. If an American says, wow, this line is moving about as fast as the DMV, every other American in the room will groan in chilled pain.
Because the shared cultural knowledge is that the DMV is famous for having incredibly long lines, endless bureaucracy, and very grumpy employees.
But if you're from a country where the license office is super efficient, or if you've just never had to go to an American DMV, the joke makes zero sense. It's just a statement about a line.
Or references to daily habits. I'm thinking of all the jokes about trying to assemble IKEA furniture.
Right. That's a nearly universal experience for many people in Western cultures. The frustration of the confusing instructions, the one missing screw, the inevitable argument with your spouse or partner.
But if you've never been to an IKEA, the joke falls completely flat.
It does. So how do we diagnose this? If you, as a learner, are listening to a sentence and the grammar is fine, the words are simple, but everyone else is laughing,
Then the diagnosis is almost certainly culture. The problem is not your English proficiency. The problem is your cultural database.
that should be so reassuring. It means your English isn't broken. You just haven't seen that particular movie. You just didn't grow up watching Friends or The Office.
So how do we build that cultural database? We can't go back in time and live 30 years of history in a week.
No, but you can fast track it. And I think sitcoms are the single best tool for this.
Situation comedies like Friends, The Office, Modern Family, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Exactly. These shows are literally built on cultural tropes. They are built on common stereotypes and observational humor about daily life. If you watch The Office, either the US or the UK version, you learn all about the awkwardness of the workplace, the annoying boss, the office romance.
These are cultural archetypes.
And you should notice repeated themes. If you're watching shows and you hear 5 different jokes about how expensive coffee is, or about people called Karens, that tells you something important about the culture.
Casual podcasts are also great for this. Listening to unscripted banter between hosts, kind of like what we're doing now, but maybe more informal, it lets you hear the natural rhythm of cultural references. You hear what movies they quote, what songs they mention.
It's like a crash course in cultural literacy.
Okay, so we've covered the mechanics, But I really want to get practical now. I want to give our listeners some advanced strategies. This is what we would call C1 behavior.
Yes. C1 is that advanced level where you're not just surviving in the language, you're comfortable and autonomous.
So what happens when you really, truly do not get it? When you were standing there, someone said something, maybe it was a joke, maybe it wasn't, and you were just completely confused. What do you do?
Well, the B2 move, the most common learner behavior, is to just nod and smile and pray the conversation moves on quickly.
The fake nod. We've all done it. The smile and wave technique.
But that's so dangerous because what if they just asked you a direct question? What if the joke was actually offensive and you're just smiling at it? What if they were telling you bad news and you just laughed?
It can backfire badly. So what is the C1 move?
The C1 move is to ask for clarification, but, and this is the key, to do it with confidence.
You have to frame it not as a personal failure, but as a point of engagement.
Exactly. You don't need to apologize for your English. You can say something like, sorry, I think I missed that reference. What do you mean?
Or if you suspect it was a joke, you can just call it out.
Yes. This is a great move. You can say, with a smile, wait, is that a joke?
Wait, is that a joke?
Yes.
That is such a powerful question. It's almost, I don't know, a bit flirtatious in the right context.
It is, and it puts the ball back in their court. And here is the secret that most native speakers won't tell you. We love explaining our own jokes.
We really do, don't we? It's a little bit narcissistic.
Totally. If I make a clever reference to Star Wars and you don't get it, and you ask me to explain it, I get to show off my nerdy knowledge. I get to tell you the whole backstory. It removes the awkwardness and actually keeps the conversation flowing.
So admitting you don't understand isn't a conversation stopper. It's actually a conversation starter.
Precisely. Saying something like, I think I'm missing something here, is a very vulnerable, honest, and frankly charming thing to say. It makes people want to help you. It turns the native speaker into your teacher for just a moment, and that creates a bond.
That is such a huge mindset shift. You're moving from a place of, I have to hide my ignorance, to, I can use my curiosity to connect with people.
That is the absolute essence of language learning. Curiosity over perfection, every single time.
I love that. Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We have deconstructed irony, tone, understatement, self-deprecation, puns, and culture. Let's try to summarize the key pillars for our listeners.
Okay.
If you really want to unlock English humor, what are the 3 big things you need to focus on?
Okay. Number 1, people. Remember that humor is about social connection, not just language rules. Self-deprecation isn't about weakness. It's about bonding. It's about being one of us.
Number 2, tone. It is not just about the grammar of the sentence. You have to listen for that flat voice for deadpan, the exaggerated voice for sarcasm, and the strategic silence of the pause. Listen to the music, not just the lyrics.
And number 3, context. It is not just about the words in the dictionary. Look at the situation around you. Is it a total disaster being described politely? Is it a reference to a TV show? You have to learn to trust your eyes more than your ears.
And I want to describe what I think is the ultimate sign of progress for a learner, the real aha moment.
Oh, this is the best feeling in the world when it finally happens.
It is the day you hear a joke in English, and you laugh before your brain has had time to fully translate it or analyze it.
Yes, you laugh viscerally. You laugh from your gut because you felt the irony, not because you analyzed the syntax.
That is the moment you know. That is the moment you know your English is truly leveled up. You aren't just translating words in your head anymore. You are feeling the language.
You're thinking in English. And even more importantly, you are joking in English.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to mull over. We have talked a lot today about how to understand humor. But I want you to think for a moment about why it's so important.
Humor is like a window into the soul of a language. It tells you what a culture values, what it fears, and how it copes with pain and absurdity.
Exactly. British humor tells you about their stoicism and their class anxiety. American humor tells you about their optimism and their love of observational details. If you can joke in a language, you don't just know the words.
You understand the mindset of the people who speak it. You're starting to see the world through their eyes.
And that is a truly beautiful thing. That is what real fluency is all about.
It has been a pleasure. This conversation has been interesting.
I see what you did there. Very interesting indeed. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to ESL Listening Practice. Keep listening, keep laughing, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.